Screenplays, and really any story, is about taking the reader on an emotional journey. And I've talked before about the two emotions you need to tap into regularly, being hope and fear. But I'll get comments and questions from time to time about how to incorporate those emotions into a screenplay or any story. And the obvious response is, well, just include them. I mean, if you don't have anything in your script that the audience can hope for, or anything in your script that they're worried or fearful about, then that's a big problem for your screenplay. But if you have hope and fear, how can you maximize those emotions? And you can do it by using the storytelling tools of Dread and of Foreplay. And I'm going to give you a couple of ways to do that in your script. First, a little bit of foreplay, because I want you to know how to maximize emotions in your stories, how to make the reader excited, and how to make them even scared at times. And then I'm going to let you know a couple of things you can do to generate dread and foreplay in your stories. And get your minds out of the gutter, this is not that kind of channel, and I'm trying to keep the sexual puns to a minimum. And by the way, if you ever have short screenwriting questions I can answer, drop them in the comments below or email me. I do see them and I do answer them. Just be patient with me. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but feel free to ask. And if you're in the LA area and want to buy me a milkshake or cheeseburger or something like that, I'm down. If I can work it in my schedule, send me an email and ask. And if you don't seem too weird and you promise to not pitch me your latest project, we'll figure it out. But as a quick housekeeping note, if you want me to read your script or talk about your story idea, there are links below where you can set that up, either through my consulting services or by joining my coaching program, The Navigator. So if you're interested in those, links below will give you the information that you need. I'm sorry, but I simply cannot read and respond to everyone's log lines or script excerpts or scripts. I'm honored that you've asked, but I want us to protect one another and honor each other's time, which is why I have those services linked below. Now, I mentioned I was going to demonstrate storytelling foreplay and then get into a couple of things that you can do, but I need to do something first. I need you to understand that these can be very powerful storytelling tools. But if you use them improperly, just like if you use them improperly on a date with a significant other, if you do them wrong, okay, it's not going to turn anybody on. It's going to turn them off. And generating foreplay and dread in a story, just like in real life, takes time, patience, intentionality, and some purposeful focus. So when it comes to an example of storytelling foreplay, and of dread for that matter, you might be like, okay, Jake, I'm ready for you to tell me, stop dragging this out. Just give me the example already. But that's the thing. I've already been doing it. In fact, pretty much the whole video up to this point has been foreplay and dread. So if you want an example, rewind and watch from the beginning again. And the first principle of using these tools in your screenplay is to promise something is coming, but delay giving it. It's the anticipation that creates the foreplay or the dread. You see, if we're like following our hero who's going to a rendezvous to hand over some secret information, that might be exciting to us because we know that that character needs the cash that they're going to get in exchange for that information. And we're hopeful they're going to get it, but he doesn't have the cash yet. And then we have a couple of other scenes in between. Maybe he's getting cold feet. And now we are delaying the promise of the thing. We are engaged in foreplay. And what would make this even more gratifying for the audience is if we know the buyers of the information are planning to kill our intrepid hero as soon as he gives up the information. But we like our intrepid hero, and now we are dreading that he won't be aware of the bad thing happening until it is too late. But so many new writers just want to jump to the exchange. We promise the exchange, so let's just go to that. And sometimes you should do that. Sometimes you need to do that. But other times you want the buildup, you want the delay, you want the anticipation. And that anticipation is the most exciting part for the audience. And if you've ever been on a big vacation or like plan to go on a big vacation or go to an important event, the anticipation is the exciting part. The delay is all foreplay if the event is exciting to you, or the delay is all dread if the event is not being looked forward to. After my wife died last year, I was dreading the memorial service for her. I wanted it to be over, but it wasn't. It was delayed, and I dreaded it. I didn't want to say goodbye to my wife. I loved her, and that was something that I dreaded. And you can use that in your stories. Let the audience feel the dread, or tantalize them with some hope and let them feel the foreplay of the events. And those of you who have significant others know that when you want to get intimate with one another, sometimes it's fun to just go for it, like hold hands or whatever floats your boat, go big or go home, right? But you also know that getting the other person to think about it and imagine you holding their hand and imagine you walking with them and flirting, that's exciting to think about. And yeah, it's exciting when you're there and actually doing it and going through it, but it's also exciting to think about ahead of time because you don't know quite what is going to happen. And that's the second principle of Dread and Foreplay, is you make sure, as far as the story goes, that the options are open. Things can go either way. So you cannot use one without the other. You cannot have just foreplay and not dread, or vice versa. If you're using foreplay, you also need to throw some dread in. If you're using dread, throw some foreplay in. So for example, you've got a couple planning a date, and we see them each separately talking to their friends about it ahead of time. They're excited about the date. They're excited about the possibilities of it because we're in the foreplay part. But there's that one friend though who's looking at their magic 8-ball and saying, yeah, this is not gonna go well. They just throw in a little bit of dread. But the dater doesn't care. They're excited about going, and we see them on the day of the date. They're getting ready, trying to make it there on time, and we're hopeful that the date's gonna go well. But we remember magic 8-ball friend. What if it doesn't? And as far as your story goes, it's fine if it doesn't go well. Now if that's your real life dating experience, you want it to go well. And if it hasn't, I'm sorry. But in a story, you torture your characters and the audience. The audience is hopeful. We're being flirted with, made to think it's going to go well. But there's this small inkling in our minds that it won't go well. And this you want to cultivate in your storytelling. And by engaging in some foreplay and some dread with the audience, you are maximizing the hope and fear they're going to experience while participating in your story. So the way the events unfold is what allows you to build this dread or foreplay over time. You don't want to set up the date on page 10 and then on page 11 we're on the date. Well, maybe you don't. More than likely you don't. Again, you don't want to use this tool all the time, but you do want to use it. So be sure you are delaying the audience from the feeling of hope and fear. Make them anticipate those feelings. Just don't give it to them yet. And also make sure that you're leaving the options open for things to go either way. It could go good, it could go bad. And this keeps the audience guessing and engaged in your story. Now, there is a caveat to using this storytelling tool. The audience has to care enough about the characters to be invested in what becomes of them. So using Dread and Foreplay too early in your script may not be the best call. And this tool tends to work a little better when it's used later in the story around the climax of your story. I know, I'm so bad. That's just what it's called. If you want to know more about story, be sure to grab my book. If you want to know about another storytelling tool that you can use, watch this. Don't forget about fun buttons and other links below that might be helpful to you. And when you tell a story that matters. See you later.